this approach that you've had with clients and prospects, how has it sort of worked for you?
How can I make this easier on them? All right, what's our competitor doing? How can we do this in a different way? So anticipating needs.
How do you scale it at that level? How do you scale care?
The more time, effort, money that we throw into our people, the more committed they are to the firm and to their client. And everybody really cares.
Why would insurance consultants do video podcasting with their clients and build out that whole infrastructure themselves? Today, you're going to find out and see what opportunities there are in marketing for your company. I'm here with Griffin Caulfield and Bob Ball from JKJ. Tell me a little bit about JKJ and your roles there, just so people understand.
You want me to go, Bob? Griff's looking at me because I'm the old guy in the room. I've been doing it a long time. So
It's deference.
that's sure. I'll start and you can jump in.
Sounds good.
JKJ, we are I'll say full service consultancy based in Bucks County, Pennsylvania. Do business in all 50 states. We do benefits consulting, so employee benefits, as well as property and casualty, that's where Griff's world is, and some personal lines and retirement services. We've been around since the 50s. We're an independent agency, which we take a lot of pride in, and we're committed to that. Allows us to do things for our clients that we feel a lot of the other firms out there can't do because of their associations with private equity, I'll say, or being publicly traded. So just allows us a little bit more flexibility.
Got it. So that whole idea of putting shareholder first versus client first, which we're not accusing anybody of doing, but it's about the implications. Griff, tell me more about your sort of side of the business and how your prospecting and this sort of ideation came to be.
Yeah. I think the best way to start. So I started at JKJ 2 years ago. I think it's important to note the producer development plan. So JKJ is a little unique in the way we train our people. We're not very eager to hire people from other firms. We like to grow our own.
Oh, wow.
As a priority. Is that okay to say about? Although we have done both, but a big part of what we do is we want to grow people the JKJ way. And I think my mentor right now was the first person to go through that program. So what is that program? I sit in meetings with Bob. I'm a 22-year-old kid, or I was when I started. And I would sit and listen to all of Bob's client meetings. And I'd go with him on renewals. And a lot of companies would shirk that off and say, why would we bring the new kid in front of clients? But JKJ saw that as an advantage of how to train people early.
I love it.
And that translated to I would get to see their first interaction with prospects. And what did that look like? Bob would ask really good questions when he was with a prospect, and he'd show a genuine interest in their business. JKJ wouldn't come up. It would be more about them and just learning everything about their business. That's step one with any prospect. So then I walked into our CEO's office, Bruce, and I said, I'm frustrated because we have such a great place and I want to just tell everyone about it, but I can't get people's attention long enough for them to listen. So I get it. It's insurance. It's not that fun of a conversation, especially somebody who's so new to it. So I wanted to introduce the podcast, which is basically the same thing Bob does in his first meeting, which is ask really good questions and then also learn a lot about their business at the same time and do it in the context of JKJ. So JKJ would make a platform and give it to the prospect to share about their business. And we would leave that meeting learning a lot more about what they do and having a couple hooks on how JKJ can help as well. So that's how the podcast started. Everyone was very helpful in getting some high-profile guests on, including Bob, which gave it legs and gave it somewhat of an audience to get going. And then I've been traveling all over the country interviewing possible prospects, learning about their business, never selling them really, just letting them know that I'm there and JKJ's there if they need us.
Well, I think it inherently puts forward that client first approach right off the bat, right? There's no hooks, no whatever the phrase would be, like no other conditions other than come sit on the podcast and talk about your business, right? And so I think that says a lot. Before I move into understanding a little bit more of some of the, because I imagine there's so many amazing nuggets that you've learned along the way from just having those conversations, right? That are great takeaways for everybody. You mentioned the JKJ way. And so, are there other aspects in the mentorship that you saw, and Bob, feel free to step in, of just what that means? Because I think that so many businesses and so many business owners will talk about this, right? If only you had the opportunity to work with us, you'll see all that inherent. I know we talk about that all of the time, right? Because video production gets commoditized often, right? I need somebody to come out and shoot this. And what you're not thinking about is all those extra miles and extra steps that a good partner will go of asking the right questions and predicting and anticipating issues and seeing it as their responsibility. These are the terms we use all day long. But at the end of the day, people generally just look at a proposal, they look at the bottom line price, and they go like, this more, that less. What do we get? Right. So it's such a great way to focus on breaking through.
Yeah.
What is that JKJ way?
Yeah, I'll start, Griff. So I've been JKJ 20 years. I worked on the insurance carrier side 6 years leading up, called on every broker, consultant in the Philly, Central PA, South Jersey market. And what I learned during that time was JKJ was just different. And we were smaller back then, a lot smaller. We're 160 employees now. We were probably 30 or 40 then.
Wow, it's a lot of growth.
It's a lot of growth. But the culture, and we say it, we kind of overuse the word, I feel like at times, yeah, but it's different. I mean, seeing all these other firms and seeing there's a lot of good insurance people out there and really nice people too. I just think the way we care, not only about our client, but our employees is a totally different, it's a different game. I mean, it's so unique to our firm as it relates to our industry, but also other firms and companies that I've seen. The more time, effort, money that we throw into our people, the more committed they are to the firm and to their client. And everybody really cares. I mean, it's without exception, when we interact with our clients, a lot of times it's during some really difficult events in their life, especially the employees going through maybe a specific medical condition that they're dealing with.
Yeah.
And so being extremely empathetic, but it being genuine is hugely important. People understand and feel that. So I'll say that's the biggest differentiator or key about the JKJ way is when you're doing anything, it is all about doing the right thing for the client and making sure our employees are cared for as well. It's that culture.
How do you scale care? You talked about this immense growth, right? And I mean, maybe there's a hint in your story of the mentorship and walking through that and actually living it and witnessing it. But how do you scale it at that level? How do you scale care?
I think it's got to be the hiring process. I think we're extremely unique in that our competitors can make a lot of money aggregating smaller shops. So they can go to ABC Insurance Agency, buy all of their books of business, as what we call them, and then cut costs after that. They centralize operations and then they cut costs, and then they can make a nice return because it's a recurring revenue model.
Sure.
JKJ is intentional about organic growth rather than buying shops we really don't know the culture about and just adding that to the bottom line and showing that we're increasing revenue inorganically. That's just not the way we do it. We would rather control the quality by meticulous hiring practices, looking for people that fit the personality of the firm rather than have the most impressive resume. I think it comes down, it works down to if you're hardworking, you have a sense of humor, you can hustle, you can be creative. That's what we typically look for. And we really don't compromise if you have that or don't.
Right.
We just we'll be intentional about who we hire.
I really like that. It's like, it sounds to me like quality control from that perspective, right? And it's, I assume, obvious, but let's say it. How does that translate to the client experience?
Yeah, I mean, it's back to the hiring real quick, John. I'll get to the client experience in a second, but it's not a 2-person interview process. It's a 6 to 10 to 12-person interview process at times, and it takes a while. And we let the candidate know right up front, this is not going to happen overnight. We need to make sure you're a good fit for us and we're a good fit for you, because there's certain things that we do that probably wouldn't be overly exciting for some candidates that are out there looking to, either hit the ground running day one and not go through the process Griff has gone through more recently than I.
Sure. Yeah.
And taking the time to be part of the JKJ and learn the JKJ way. But how does it translate into the client experience? I think it's just, you're dealing with people that care, again, that are truly good people in general. We've had our misses. That's no question.
Yeah, every business is going to, yeah,
Right.
for sure.
But we learn and we adapt and we move forward. But it really is just about, having people that actually care about the work that they're doing and the people that they're doing the work for.
Sure.
Is what we get out of that hiring process for sure.
I don't know why, and we can control the editing. So if this is lame, we'll cut it out. But I really have this visual in my head of like the way you guys are hiring with all those gatekeepers, that it's like a video game and you're just trying to like get to that like 12th boss guy and like make it through. And like the idea that somebody's going to slip through the cracks and make it is almost like, you know what? Proud of you, but get out of here. No, that's
good way to
proud of you. You really made us think you cared, and you didn't. But that was it's funny, the visuals that
It's hard to fake it.
Yeah.
Through that many.
of course,
for sure.
yeah, of course.
Just to give you an example, my hiring process started when I was 12, and I started caddying and being completely serious, just because I think I was 12. I started caddying. Insurance guys love golf, and I've caddied for a lot of the JKJ guys. Met some of them through the game of golf, but I carried myself like a 55-year-old man early, and they were like, "That's going to be it. Let's look at that kid," just because of how old I seem. I mean, still seem old, and I still get made fun of for it.
You're like the Benjamin Button of insurance.
Yeah. I was hoping for gray hair because I couldn't source any business when I started. I'm like, I need a little gray.
Do you feel actually, just quick tangent, what'd you learn from that experience? Like caddying as a kid, I feel like any kind of job like that, you could, you're rubbing shoulders and there's sort of expectations with like how you behave and how you show up and that sort of thing. And I'm sure that there are caddies that accepted that, brought that in and ran with it like you, and a bunch that were just kind of like grimacing through it and didn't appreciate but like, are there any big learning takeaways that you still bring with you into the, your day-to-day today from that experience?
Bob, do you caddy?
I never did.
Really?
I was not out in golf as a kid.
Wow.
Playing baseball kind of every day.
Right,
every
you were late
summer.
to golf.
Yeah, so
You caught up, obviously.
you're gonna have to take
That's
this
a
Griff.
high bar for caddying already. You're like, you caught up. That's
right.
But I was anticipating needs and client service. So how does it translate to what JKJ does? 15 years old, there's some more senior caddies. I want the better loops. How can I perfect my craft and differentiate myself to the other caddies? Right? Do I place the driver on the fifth tee, or do I hand it to him straight up? Or how can I make the golfer's experience better? And there's an element of creativity, awareness.
Yeah.
Where can I be helpful? That translate perfectly to JKJ. Okay, application processes stink. How can I make this easier on them? All right, what's our competitor doing? How can we do this in a different way? So anticipating needs, being likable, having a sense of humor, laughing at yourself when you make a mistake, but also knowing you got to hustle and make up for it.
Yeah.
Also knowing who you want to work with. There was guys we know who we want to caddy for, and we know who we don't.
Yeah.
Can you share any of this?
Yeah. There's a couple. Yeah.
You get the notepad out? Write that down. Get their IG. Well, we'll just hit them up on.
Yeah. But at JKJ, like we're almost as selective as our clients are. Who's going to be a good fit for us? We like working with people we like. That makes complete sense and it's redundant. But caddying's the same way. We're willing to bend and weave to whatever we have to do to work with the people we want to work with. Similar to caddying.
I really love that analogy, and I think the biggest takeaway for me is anticipating needs. I think that it goes into care, right? You can't anticipate needs if you don't care. So I think caring, building that into anticipating needs, and they go hand in hand together, and that's what creates that elevated client experience. I mean, that's our brand motto, right? Is the elevated experience, and it's the way it translates when we talk to clients is we're easy to work with. That's what we talk about all the time. But what that breaks down to and what it makes somebody easy to work with is anticipating needs, taking responsibility for things that touch what you do, even if they're not exactly what you do, right? So I use this example all the time. You're filming in a big event at a convention, a trade show, and there's going to be AV, and there's going to be a planner, and there's going to be all these other folks there. Are you communicating to them ahead of time? Even though like I don't do planning, right? And I'm not going to be responsible for the AV, but I want to make sure the audio sounds good. So we're going to anticipate needs. We're going to talk about logistics. We're going to figure out where talent needs to be at what times so that everybody just has a better experience. So I love hearing that. I think it's a great, and I know I threw that at you and you had no idea the caddy question was coming. I think you handled it great. So let's parlay this into, I think we already get a sense from you, sort of your approach in general and philosophy around work, the care. And so it all ties into this sort of strategic, but also that ties directly into the core identity of JKJ, which is this podcast that you've started and created and what you've been doing. So you're going out to these clients, you're sitting down with them and just having a conversation about their business and learning from their expertise, right? And asking all the questions. What are some of the things that you're learning in that process? And what are some of the, like, do you have any anecdotal, like, oh man, I got to interview, and we don't have to use any names, but interview this one leader and they really were great on this, and I learned that from them. Anything like that came up for you?
I don't know. I think I would say the one thing I learned from a lot of them is the more, I don't know, status their role had, the more similar they were. So like the really big CFOs and CEOs, they had extreme levels of emotional intelligence and awareness. They were very likable. They were very clear in how they communicated. They were very, they didn't use a lot of buzzwords. They were very direct, to the point, but also being polite and likable at the same time. That's common among all of the big names.
Yeah.
Not to say some, I guess, are little names. They're all amazing. I'm so grateful they came on. But
but some of the owners and leaders of larger organizations have this similar thread.
Totally.
Yeah. Okay.
And you walk away meeting them, you're like, yeah, that makes sense. Why that person's there.
Wow. Okay.
For sure. That's the one thing I noticed. It takes. They're all smart. They're all masters of their craft, but not one of them is not very, very tuned in with EQ and just human
Very cool.
intelligence. Yeah.
Wow.
That side of it.
That's pretty awesome. Any takeaways? So any takeaways that you've had from those conversations that are, I mean, we have business owners that listen to this podcast and could be watching this and that's a great one, that focus on EQ.
Yeah.
Are there any, I asked you guys earlier, how do you scale care? How did you, and maybe we didn't get to this yet, and maybe we should, how JKJ was able to grow exponentially the way you have. Do you have any takeaways from either? Maybe I'll give you the road less traveled, right? You can take the Robert Frost approach. So we can talk about JKJ and your guys' growth. We could talk about things you've learned from these podcasts and their growth trajectories.
Yeah, I've one, and I have no problem dropping his name because he wouldn't mind. Coach Dick Vermeil caught me when I was full of shit with a question early on. Coach Dick Vermeil, known to be an emotional coach, I sit down and interview him. I'm like, hey, coach, I heard you're really tough and I hear you're really emotional. Like, is that the right formula to be a leader? Like, is that the right, combination of things? And he called me out. He's like, Griff, you can't fake that. You can't fake that for the team. He's like, it has to be genuine to who you are. And people are only going to follow you when you're very comfortable with who you are. And the reason I led teams is not because I was emotional or it was because I was tough. It was just who I am, and I was so comfortable. And people naturally want to be around people who are comfortable with themselves.
Huh.
And he's like, that was like the one leadership lesson that was great. 88 years old, just still sharp as can be.
Yeah.
And I think that translates to every walk of life, not just business or sports.
I think it's really fascinating because I don't know that if you had, on my bingo board that I had for this podcast, that if you, thought of the things I'd predict that would come up, that social emotional intelligence, EQ, which I would say that still falls under that umbrella, right? That Dick Vermeil story still falls under that umbrella. I don't know that I would have, and it still ties back, I think, into the JKJ core branding, which is care, right? So it's fascinating to kind of hear how this all still kind of connects back. How has this worked for you guys? This I don't even know that I want to call it a strategy, because strategy implies that there's like, I don't know, it feels too cold in a company that focuses on caring, right? But this approach that you've had with clients and prospects, how has it sort of worked for you?
Yeah, I think it's just repetition. I was new when I started. I didn't really know how to conduct a meeting, but I knew how to have a conversation. So I started there, and then I just kept on trying to push to have more conversation about JKJ, about insurance. And if they didn't, I'd move on to the next one. It was just a good relationship to have. But I think we're not looking to work with people who are happy. We want to fix problems.
Mm-hmm.
And the goal of the podcast is just to have enough volume where we can meet enough people who have problems that we're in the right place in the right time. So that's the strategy. It's not really invite them on and hold on until they become a client. It's we're here when you need us.
Yeah.
This is just a great introduction to JKJ. And it's worthwhile for them to do it to promote their business.
That's the next part I wanted to talk about, because you guys are doing this in good faith to support other people in growing their brand, their business. So talk a little bit about the impact. Have you seen an impact on their end, right? That they're using the content you're creating for them, that they're leveraging it, and the benefits that they're getting from it?
Yeah, I think Bovio Rubino was a guest, and they got back to me and they were like, our clients loved hearing our story in long form. And I think I'll never say, hey, the JKJ podcast is going to reach every single one of your ideal audience members.
Sure.
It's just not possible. But them posting it on their platforms and reaching their desired audiences just gives them an extra touch with their relationships that they wouldn't get without somebody interviewing them.
Yeah.
It's hard for them to just talk about their business, but when they're teed up with a question and somebody who's interested, people naturally want to tune into that. So it's a little bit more impactful for their audience, who they distribute to. It's a little bit of a co-effort on how we distribute to.
And I don't know if this is true or not, but it's so nice, I think, for a lot of these CEOs, CFOs, presidents of companies, that they're being asked constantly to speak in front of groups and to present to, different chambers of commerce and things of that nature. They can't be spread that thin. So this is a nice venue that Griff's built to be able to interview somebody, spread that word amongst, the clients or clientele that they're targeting, but hit a lot of the people that they're missing because they're spread too thin as well.
Well, I love it. I think we all know the power of storytelling and the connection that you can get when you really understand somebody's story, right? Especially if it resonates with you. And I think that you also think about the gaps you have, like even in JKJ with the different lines of business that you have, right? Like we met through the context of benefits, and there's a whole other side of it, right? On the insurance side for your team that I might not even recognize because I have my narrow scope that I'm looking into, right? So you think about that from the perspective of not even knowing all the lines, but we run into that often where whether I'm promoting brand films that we produce commercials, and then no one has any idea about this video podcasting pillar of our business, and vice versa, where we've had people go, oh, you do trade show corporate events and you can deploy a whole team of shooters? I had no idea, right? And so you think about that, then you go a step deeper where like if you really understood the core origin story of how this all started, how that informs our brand values, why we do what we do every day, that gives you an even deeper understanding, connection to the business, and a reason to work with them, right? So I think it says a lot, and to both points, that these leaders get to share their story and then come back and realize that people actually cared and appreciated it, and it, I'm sure, deepened that connection, right? You know, you're connecting more deeply, the first people you're going to think of are those people that are in that circle. So it's a really great value you're providing.
Thank you for saying that. Awesome.
Awesome. Yeah. So I guess let me ask you, as somebody who, you know, you are so focused in the space that you're in, right? And I'm going to throw out there where we use it all, you know, some folks use it all too often. I think we can use it really well here. Experts in your space, right? Video podcasting and podcasting in general was something that you know, hey, it's new, right? Yeah. What are some tips or advice you would give somebody that wanted to launch something like this themselves at the start? And, you know, what were some things that, you know, I'm not even going to give you avenues, no filters. What are some things that are some advice you'd give somebody that was going to start something like this?
Start a podcast.
Yeah, like start a podcast for their brand. You know, thinking on your experience, you know, you go into the CEO's office, you're like, I want to do this.
Right.
And he goes, okay.
I would say get results before you invest. So I had a pretty well thought out plan, distribution plan. How was I going to reach these people? All right, I knew a couple big guests I could get early on that will give it somewhat credibility.
Yep.
So map out a plan and then act. And then I think act, run into a problem, solve it, take more action, run into more problems, solve it. Like anything, it's just the unknown of it's exciting to me. Similar, I would say it's similar to, it's a little bit of an entrepreneurial feel where no one's really done this before. But I saw like a vision for it, and it was more problems than anything. You just fix them and move on.
Figure out how to solve them.
I would say get guests early on and kind of bite off more than you can chew, and then just solve the problems is my take on it.
I like that.
Would you have engaged with somebody like John that had the tech piece down, meaning like the mics, the camera, just so you were buttoned up the moment you started?
Yeah, I probably looked pretty foolish my first couple interviews. And I could have definitely used a lot of TLC on the production side.
Yeah.
I showed up at CFO's offices not knowing what I was doing, which is how I preferred it at the time. But looking back, it probably cost me some opportunities not having the production down.
It's really funny you say that, because I think that, you know, it's kind of like when you talk to a lawyer and they always want to explain that they're a business first lawyer, right? That like an attorney's always going to say, you know, there's usually this sort of intersection where it feels like attorneys are always pumping the brakes on entrepreneurial endeavors, and there's a kind of this conflict. And so a lot of attorneys want to say like, hey, I'm business forward, because not always the best, most optimal legal decision is the best entrepreneurial decision, right? And you want somebody that's going to think balance and that sort of thing. I think the same thing is true for anything that you're investing in, right? Like if you're going to engage in because I say this to clients all the time, and where it translates for me is the word quality. So the conditions for quality have changed so dramatically, even in the last year, 5 years, 10 years, right? Because there was a time where the entry to production was really difficult, right? And before digital cameras and that sort of thing, right? And then as digital cameras came in, you get a flood of people that can now afford to get a camera and get in, but there's still all these workflow elements. And then now you can shoot stuff on your phone, right? And half the time it's looking better than some of the ENG camcorders that some people are using, right? We talked about this off camera earlier. But then I get this question all the time is like, what level of quality do I need? And so when people are reaching out to me, you could build a studio like we've built out here, and that's a certain level of quality, right? What I usually tell folks is, as a bare minimum, I need to be able to hear and see the content, right? Bare minimum. And when I say that, I mean, you know, you have your distracting, shaky video that's probably going to pull me out. You have audio that's too far away that I can't really hear what's going on. I'm probably tuning out, right? So there's your baseline. But for you guys, it's a different level, because it's also the experience that you're creating for the people that you're interviewing. So there's another component of this, which is if I walk in And this happened to me. I told you guys off camera, somebody tried to prospect me on a remote video podcast.
Yeah.
And I showed up with a significantly better camera setup at my home office than they did, right? And so I'm immediately going, so you invested all this time to bring me on, but all you've got is your Dell? Like that's what you're bringing a knife to a gunfight? Like that's all you got, right? And so there's a little bit of an expectation. We run into this a lot. There are cameras, by the way. I could go on this for hours, so Sierra will tell me to shut up at some point. But there are really powerful HDSLR cameras that look like a photo camera that you could bring on set. And some of the times they're the better tool for the job, depending on what you're trying to do. But if I walk on to a big, 5 actors, 6 crew member set, lighting, we've got hair and makeup, the client's sitting there with a client monitor and they're watching, and you walk out with this little dinky DSLR, like even from a presentation perspective, people have questions, right? So there's this component of, did it matter for the final video? Maybe not, but that experience also matters up front. So I hear what you're saying, that there's a kind of learning curve there.
Totally. And what I didn't know early on is part of it is you are delivering an experience. Being interviewed is an experience.
Yeah.
And to play it up just gives the conversation a little bit more oomph and elevates it a little bit more. So everyone likes to be interviewed. Like everyone likes to talk about their business, especially business owners. So delivering an experience was a huge part of it that I didn't know early on. So that's really
Big
really
learning.
yeah.
Griff, you finish every podcast with a question, don't you?
I start it and I finish it, but I steal it from other podcasts.
But a question you asked a lot of questions, but it's a unique question, is it not?
So I switch it up. Sometimes it's like it's one or the other, but sometimes I go best and worst advice you ever got, which I stole from Jay Shetty's podcast, it's a good podcast.
I like his podcast. Yeah, he's great.
And then I think this is like a very popular question too, but like 5 years from now, like if you could kick back on the beach, what do you want to have done with your business?
Oh, wow.
What would you be really happy with yourself about? Those are kind of the 2 ones I finish up on. And that's,
24.
It's
That's pretty good.
that's pretty great.
Just a thief.
We were, I will say before we break that it's funny to call yourself a thief that way, but I do think that there's a strategy. We talk about a lot in terms of content creation. And so a lot of folks, and I like to share this, and I talk to clients about this a lot, because a lot of folks are focusing on organic content. They're looking at the success that YouTubers are having and Jay Shetty and all of these folks that have these huge followings on online. And they're going, well, if I just post organically, once a week, whatever, for a certain amount of time, I'm going to hit that. And it's such a misnomer because number one, and I say this a lot, Mark Zuckerberg is not as rich as he is because he's just giving away eyeballs and views to everybody for free, right? And the folks at Google, et cetera. That algorithm and the way that they're doing that to incentivize content creation on their platforms, to deliver that as the experience they create for their customers. And by the way, they don't create content, right? So they're this like broker of content. They want volume and they want creativity and they want consistency, right? And so if you're going to try to cut through the noise, the quantity of that you need to hit is a full-time job, right? Mm-hmm. And a lot of people don't realize that. The other thing that people don't realize is because of that, because it's pay to play, when you're creating organic content and posting it, for the most part, the people that are going to see that are the people that already know you and follow you, right? They're seeing it, that organic audience. Right. It's very rare that you're going to break through, even going viral, which is just like, mythical wizard creature that's out there that everybody's trying to capture, like a leprechaun at the end of a rainbow. There's like 8 different analogies that I just used to describe virality. But so creating that content and then going into the paid space where you're actually paying to get that content in front of your audience, right? Those are 2 different strategies that happen after all the creative storytelling and video and quality and all the things we talked about. So it's important to segment those 2 things. And so what I tell folks a lot strategically, whether you're going in the organic or the paid content, is that the data and research you need to do on what content to create, there's 2 places where it exists. One, the content that's already been made by competitors and other people that you want to emulate. And you can look at their content and it's right there for you. How many views did that video get? How many views did that video get? How much interaction did that video get? And doing a little bit of research goes a long way in terms of defining that. The other thing that strategically we talk to clients a lot about doing is don't reinvent the wheel. In your industry, go out, look at what videos are really performing well in insurance, right? In manufacturing, wherever you are, and then go make your spin and your version on that video, right? The last thing to do is analyzing your own content. So you put out 5 videos and one of those short videos has double the views of another one. Those double means double. You could have 10 views on all your videos and now you have 20 views on this one.
Right.
There was something about that video that outperformed the other ones. Look at your thumbnail, look at the title, look at the content, look at the description, and double down on that, right? And that's how these content creators are growing at scale. So I actually think, just to put another feather in your cap. I feel there's lots of feathers coming to Griff today, but put another feather in your cap. But he's actually paying me he's coming for a promotion. He's just like, John, keep telling him all the great things I do. But I brought Bob in to just corner him. But stealing whatever from those other ideas it's not the same kind of thievery that we think about with IP, right? Yeah. And my last bit on that of while I'm preaching right now and I'm on the pulpit is that for imposter syndrome and people that are sort of hesitant to get into the space and create content, and I was one of them, right? So when I started creating educational videos and content around video production, that sort of thing, I remember talking to a friend of mine who was in the website space and had been doing this for a little while. And I had this moment of just like vulnerability where I said, I just feel like all of these videos have been done. Like there's already, here's why your video should only be 2 minutes long videos out there. There's like a lot of them actually.
Right.
Well, why am I making this video? And he put it in a good framework for me, which is the client, like there's a lot of video production companies. There's a lot of insurance companies out there. The clients that you have are a subset of the pie that want it the way you do it, the JKJ way, right? And there's another subset of the pie that doesn't, right? And the same way that's true for content. So there's a video about why you shouldn't make your videos over 2 minutes or why they should be 60 seconds or whatever that's being created by other video people out there. But there's a subset of the population that for whatever reason wants to hear it from me, wants to hear it the VC Productions way, wants to work with us. And the same thing is true for JKJ. There's probably insurance companies out there that are doing content in some way, definitely not Griff's way, but some way that are out there, but they want to hear the storytelling that you have. Those CEOs want to sit down with you. And the more you do this, the more they'll want to. So for anyone struggling in any of those areas, I hope that my preaching has, it's come to an end. And those are the points I wanted to share. So I guess just spinning it back to you guys. Have you, I guess in this moment, I'll use your question on you. Look, thievery. Thinking 5 years down the line, what do you imagine? Both of you, JKJ's growth, this specific strategy and the way that it's being deployed. I'll give you those both pathways. What do you guys see?
Yeah, I mean, I see JKJ as continuing to grow at the same pace that we've grown the last few years, which is it's meteoric, I'll say, for a company of our size. Continuing to grow globally, adding more young people of the ilk of Griff Forever, and just keeping to spread the word and finding new clients that need our help. So that's what I see. Nothing changing, just meteoric growth.
Love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say I would like to see JKJ in 5 years really have a reputation of being a little bit selective, being a little bit more selective. We don't grow just for the sake of growth. We're very intentional about it.
Yeah.
And it has been a lot of growth. But I think I would love to see in 5 years people come into JKJ because of that reputation of extreme levels of care that I just don't think exists anywhere else in the marketplace. And I'd love to see that reputation spread and spread fast. But the hardest part about it is I always think insurance is a hard industry to get people's attention.
Yeah.
It's hard to get people to care long enough about insurance to realize where the true service is. So that's just one of the obstacles we have to overcome, and we could probably do that through content production.
I think so.
I think that's going to be a big part of it.
Part of it, yeah.
That was my Leonardo DiCaprio moment in Inception. And mission accomplished. So thanks so much for being on Beyond the Frame, guys, and hope you enjoyed it. And I think those are all really lofty and aspirational like goals, but clearly achievable based on what we saw here today. So thank you.
Awesome. Thanks for having us on.
Thanks for having us, John.
Yeah. I think the coolest thing about video podcasting is that it is a workflow game changer. I'm John Sherman, founder here at Video City Productions. We've been doing video here since 2008, long time. And one of the things we've learned is that most videos are going to have a long process. What video podcasting does is it shrinks that pre-production process, makes it much more easy to just pick a topic, maybe have a couple outline points. The production process, shorter, easier. Just sit down in a turnkey studio like ours and talk. And then that post-production process. Not only are those things faster to cut, you can also generate all of this short-form content very easily from 1 hour of talking. Is video podcasting the end-all be-all? Of course not when it comes to content creation. But is it an absolute workflow game changer? Absolutely. If you like this video and you're considering video podcasting or doing any video project, click the link in the description or visit videocityinc.com.